Hi there, Joshua Finn from J&H Aerospace with you on the next installment in the Killcraft, not Senator, Killcraft Gypsy saga. So first of all, before we get too far in, let me show you where we are on things. I now have the plane living in a box. So the reason for this, the reason why you want your plane in a box is so it doesn't get damaged. I recommend this for any sticking tissue type airplane. You guys are tilted a little bit, there we go. It's just a policy that I recommend is to keep the plane in a box. Don't have to just have one airplane per box, but you know, we've got this type of setup. It's a nice, kind of tight setup in there, and works well. So what we're going to do is we're going to install a dethermalizer on this airplane. So we need tail surfaces here. Don't really need to fuss with landing gear or propeller. So we'll just set the rest of it aside. I forgot something called a rudder. A fin. How about a fin? Alright, so where we are on all of this, we have our tail set up here, and the tail has a hold down for a horizontal stab. Have a rubber band up front that is definitely going to get replaced, and we'll go over a little bit of that too. There is an aluminum tube that runs top to bottom. So I've got this guy at the bottom. Now we're going to probably add another aluminum tube, we'll see. And I've got a hard point that I've built in the airplane between this bay, these two bays, that's going to support for our dethermalizer. We've got a hook up here, which I may or may not remove when we set this up correctly. So we've been flying this thing without a dethermalizer, which is stupid. But, you know, built an airplane right after this, the George Benedict 1958 Wakefield, and I think the second or third flight almost lost it, but I had the dethermalizer going, so just as it cored into that thermal, it started back down. But yeah, second or third flight, the airplane headed off downwind, propeller folded, dipped that left wing in, and just started corkscrewing it. And then the dethermalizer brought it down safe and sound. So my point to you is this, always set your dethermalizer. The dethermalizer we're going to use is this one that we sell. There are electronic dethermalizers also that work, radio dethermalizers, lots of options. This is the one that we sell on our website, and if you look at the P1B1 Sky Voyager dethermalizer video, I actually show you how to make these yourself. A lot of you guys have decided that you want to pay me to do that, so I'm more than happy to do that. It keeps food on my table. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up with a hold down for our vertical tail that makes things a little bit easier to deal with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive a piece of wire through on each side, and the rubber bands that I bring through are going to help hold that all down. So let's set that down. And I will admit to making some of this up as I go along, because that's simply how I do things. So clip the end of this so it's nice and sharp. So what I'm going to do is drive this guy. You could use a drill bit or something. I'm going to drive it actually through the vertical stab center spar here. And we will squirt some glue in the hole that we've made. Let's simply drive this guy on through. There we go. All right, so that gives us a set of hooks here. Now, so we've got a rubber band that's going to come up through like this, and we'll need hooks on either side for rubber band to come across on to lock onto on the horizontal stab. This is what I want my hooks to kind of look like. Now, what we'll do, I know that we want, okay, so we're going to put the hooks back about this far. Point them in the correct direction, that'd be nice. And there we go. So we've got our two hooks in, got this guy pretty much squared away on that end of things. Now, depending on the reliability with which, well, before I demonstrate that, I don't want to glue my rudder in permanently. We may need to put, depending on how well things work, may need to put a hook up here on either side to give us some leverage to pull the stab up. I'm expecting to need that. However, we'll do a quick cross check now. Nope, we're going to need one on each side, and I can tell you why. This part on the front is going to get in the way. And I need to go find another rubber band then. Okay, more rubber bands to the rescue. And yeah, we're going to want something up here as well, I'm thinking. Maybe. Because that's not really enough force, because we want it to come all the way down like that. So, here's what we'll do. I will make two more of these hooks off camera. Alright, so I made two more hooks, and I already punched the holes for them. Sorry, my hand's in the way and I know it. Go in there. And now, let's try again. Okay, so now we have very, very positive dethermalizer action here. So it's going to pop up like that. Jumps part way off the table. Cool. Okay, we've got that going on. Now we're going to need our next step, which is a piece of aluminum tubing along here. And this is going to provide kind of a stop motion on this line so it doesn't get lost. However, before we do that, we might want to size it correctly by making sure that the line is actually up in here where it belongs. Like that. Perfect. So I'm going to take a piece of aluminum tubing. Flare at the ends a little bit. That way we can feed this piece of spider wire through here so I don't have to use a new one. Now, for those of you that missed out on the rest on how we did the build video for all the dethermalizer stuff, I tied this piece of wire on the end of that line, and I glued that very firmly because that knot can come untied otherwise. And so this is just spider wire. I've got a hole right here that I feed that up in there. So basically, when I'm ready to store the airplane, I can slide that wire down in there and it comes free. So now it's contained on the fuselage and I can remove the tail and it doesn't get tangled up. Just like that. Now, what I'm going to do next is I don't want my dethermalizer line wandering off or anything like that. I'm going to clip a little piece of wire here. We're going to do a similar thing in this line further up. Actually, no, I'm not going to use wire. Let's use aluminum tubing. I've come to find that I prefer doing it this way. And this is a means of just keeping that line from hanging slack, waving all over the place, etc. Or pulling out and then really getting all over the place. So what I'm going to do, I've tied a loop in the end here, so what I'm going to do is tie this guy off short of that. And we will hit that with some CA glue. That way it doesn't slide freely on the line. And there we go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is this aluminum tubing sleeve that I've put on here, which is now non-removable. Mount down here with a little bit of slack in the line, just a little bit. And I have glued myself to the plane again. And there we go. Line still slides freely, so good to go there. Okay. Now I'm going to put a dab of glue right here. If you're really concerned about adhesion, you might want to scrape the tissue free where you do this. I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Okay. Now I'm going to cut another piece of aluminum tubing, about 1/4 of an inch long. Can't tell, I generally consider this material to be the solution to all problems on model airplanes. Alright, so what we're doing is we're making a mousetrap mechanism. So what I want is a little hook on this and a long lever arm that comes out. And I'm going to mount it up fairly close onto my dethermalizer so I can maximize the moment arm on it. And then what I'm going to do, make a little bend here, a little sideward bend, like this. So now I have this little grabber cloth that comes up, and I'm going to put a rubber band on that that goes back onto that dethermalizer line. So on the other side, I'm going to bend it back around. Make sure I haven't bent anything. No, it still swings relatively freely. And out here a little further, we'll just bend this straight down. Actually, we'll not bend it into a V-notch. Glue that on there like so. Big thing is I want to make sure my arm on my dethermalizer is not going to get caught on that. May actually shift it all the way back to the back of it. As it'll rotate up at that angle, that'll be enough to make sure we get completely free. Angle that upwards slightly. So I want to make sure it clears my arm on the other side. One of the things you have to make sure is that this is able to rotate up freely, because I have this little arm here. Potentially it could get caught on that. I'm actually going to trim that down slightly because I think it's too long, and it definitely does not need to be that long to provide proper dethermalizer function. Got that. And yes, the piece of metal went flying, and I have no idea where, unfortunately. Now, this arm is up here. That doesn't really line up with things. So, I'll bend it down slightly. Like that. So now, come here, you. This is just 1/16 tan rubber, like you would fly your model airplanes on. And scissors, there's scissors. So now, pull this up here and latch it on with relatively little force. It holds everything down tightly, but if I let go right here, up comes my tail. Everything looking good. This may actually be more force than I really need. I don't know if you can hear that tapping. That's how you know when you're about at the limit there, because you're just barely pulling it down hard enough. You want to make sure this tail is held down firmly against your incident screw back here. Otherwise, your flight trim will tend to wander, and usually at the worst possible time, and so you'll crash the airplane. I'm going to give you a quick demo of how this is supposed to work. This is excessively thin rubber for what you're wanting to do. Not thin, thick. Words, they are really hard for me sometimes. Let's see, that hook will have to move forward to even do it that way. So I'm just going to put a scrap piece on here so you can see what I'm getting at. And this hook is not going to hold it secure anyway. So I'm going to latch this on over, pull that arm up. Alright, so now we are, there we go. So that holds the little arm down. So now we're technically armed, right? Now this is going to run way too fast. So I'm going to loop this over onto that, onto the little pin. We'll rotate it around, and then you can watch as it very rapidly comes around, and boom, tail is up. So we want something a little better. So this hook is going to have to go. Now, I'm going to show you two different ways. Well, I've showed you this way. We're going to try doing something slightly different. I haven't done this in many years, because the last time I didn't have the right kind of wire. But what we're going to try to do is use a tension spring on here instead of a rubber band. And the beauty of a tension spring is, other than it rusting, it's not going to age, and so you don't have to replace it and retune your dethermalizer every time. So what I'm going to do, I've got a piece of heavy gauge wire here. You could use metal tubing, whatever. We're just using it as a mandrel to make a spring. I believe ValaireProducts.com actually sells these springs. And what I'm using here is 10,000 piano wire. I hope it's thick enough. It may not be, or sorry, thin enough. I can't remember what I used last time. I can tell you from experience that 015 is way too thick. The other thing is I'm not coiling this tightly enough, so it's going to make for a terribly excessively long spring. Somewhere on the interwebs there is a tutorial on actually winding these springs. It shows how to make a jig so you can do it on a drill, and it takes about 30 seconds to load the thing up, and less than that to make it. This is one cruddy looking spring that I'm making here. That should at least be long enough. Oh yeah, that is a completely worthless spring because it is way too long. That's a disaster. Take two. What I need is a pair of vice grips to hold this in place, but lacking that. Alright, let go of that, but that should be big enough. So here is our dethermalizer spring. I'm going to trim up the ends. And we'll grab the end here. Maybe this, I'm going to bend this and no, maybe. There we go. So we have a loop in the end. That part's just like a commercially available tension spring. And now we have one at each end. And again, I don't know if this one's going to work out too well. But we're going to give it a shot. We'll see. Now what we want to do is tie a loop in each end. And this will be the front end. The reason being, I have to run this pretty far out because we want the spring to never get near that guy. So we'll make a hook to go right about there. That should be good. And this hook I want to come down against the fuselage in such a way that it's going to be really, really hard for it to get loose. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do next is put this guy on here, maybe. There we go. So now my spring lays across like that. That should be good. And I don't really know how much tension I'm going to need on this, but we'll learn together. There we go. Alright, so that's not enough. And sometimes, not working this time, we're just going to have to tie a second knot. And that very slowly comes around. I'm thinking that's too slow. The reason I say it's too slow is it looked like it stopped. And dink. That's what we want to see. Let's see how it runs when it's wind it around a little further. Runs a little fast. It's not too bad. And doop de doop de doop de doop. And you can spend a lot of time experimenting with these, also using higher quality springs than mine. But the bottom line is what we want to see is it slowly works around. Now, I'm going to pause it real quick because let's make things more interesting and let's make it actually function. So we have some tension here that actually bends that line up a little bit. That sometimes is something you want to watch because now that string rubs against that. But what we're looking for is that it continues to work its way around, which is exactly what it is doing. Slowly but surely coming around. Getting there. Getting there. Getting there. Do 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 do. Boom. So, there we go. Alright folks, that is how to install a dethermalizer on a Keelcraft Gypsy, or pretty much any other large rubber model. What we have gone over is the fact that you can use a spring instead of a thin rubber band. The spring is a little easier to tune. Rubber bands, you may need a rubber stripper to get exactly the right thickness. Although if I ran a string further out here, I could run a single strand of 1/16 rubber to and from, and that would probably work out about right for this. We've got very positive dethermalizer action back here, and we've got the ability to take our tail completely off the airplane, so it stores nicely in our storage box. Next video in the series then will probably be something along the lines of taking this airplane out and flying it, because I have carefully hidden all of that footage so far. So that'll be kind of the next big thing. But the bottom line is now we have a dethermalizer on this airplane. We can fly it much more aggressively, show you some of those cool aspects of everything, and not risk losing this airplane. So in terms of the construction, this series is finally, at long last, done. I guess the final note I would make is this rubber band back here, you want to watch that periodically and make sure that's strong enough to get the job done. You inspect everything before each flying session. If the airplane is going to be out in the sun a whole lot, you want to check that these rubber bands don't deteriorate, because honestly, in one day of sitting out in the hot sun, they can deteriorate, and that can cost you a contest. So questions, comments, put them in the comment section below. Let us know what you'd like to see next for gadgetry for outdoor flying. Probably at some point we'll have to get into radio tracking systems. But there you go. We'll see you later. Hi, I'm Josh Finn. This is Hope. We are J&H Aerospace.
If you like this video, hit the like button.
Also, how about subscribe to our channel and check out jhaerospace.com for new free flight products and all of the tooling that you'll need to build them.
Thanks for watching.